Thanks to the November elections, the states are redder than they are blue. In fact, Republicans currently control 27 of the states and have more trifectas, that's sweeping government control of the states, than the Democrats do by a pretty good distance. Come on now, my name is Bryan Preston, and this has been a terrible week. It's not hard to find bad news out there, whether you're talking about the loss of the Senate runoff races, which lead to the loss of the Senate itself, or the certification of Joe Biden as our next president, or of course, the worst, which is what happened in the Capitol, and all of the fallout that's going to come from that. It's not going to be a good time for anyone who ever supported Trump, and it's not going to be a good time for conservatives in general on the policy front. But there is good news out there, and I want to talk about a little bit of it. First piece of good news actually happened on Wednesday, when State Representative Vernon Jones of Georgia switched parties. He's been a Democrat his whole life, but he's been a strong supporter for conservative governance and conservative policies for the last couple of years. And he made it official on Wednesday that he's switching to the Republican Party. Now, Vernon Jones is an interesting cat. He's a conservative black Democrat, and he's the former DeKalb County executive. So he has some coattails, potentially. He has some potential to rise to statewide office from the State House and to really do a lot of good for the Republican Party in a state, Georgia, that we are now in jeopardy of losing. So I think Vernon Jones is a great asset to the party.
I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go home to the party of Lincoln. I'm ready to go home to the party of Frederick Douglass. I'm ready to go home to the party of South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Today, I'm coming home. I'm coming home to the grand old party. I am officially joining the Republican Party.
There's other good news out there. I've talked a lot in my posts and writings about what's going on in Austin. Austin's a typical blue city. They defunded the police. Crime went up. You have a very radical government in Austin, Texas, the capital of Texas, but it is the blue dot in a red sea. Well, defunding the police has not gone well in Austin. Crime skyrocketed, and the city council has actually taken a lot of heat for that. And in November, for the general election, one of the worst city council members, Jimmy Flanagan was his name, District 6, found himself after the vote in a runoff with Mackenzie Kelly. And that runoff took place in December, and Mackenzie Kelly won. And this week, she was sworn in as the newest city council member in the city of Austin. She is a Republican, and she is going to go, and she's going to have her work cut out for her because everybody else on the city council is a Democrat, and they're all pretty radical. But she's going to have her work cut out for her, and hopefully she's up for the job. I think she is, and she's going to fly the flag for reasonable government for the first time in Austin in several years, probably first time since Ellen Troxclair was on the city council.
It has been the honor of my life to fight for the families of Northwest Austin, to have our voices heard all the way to Austin City Hall, and we are just getting started.
We wish Mackenzie Kelly well as she takes the fight to the radicals on the Austin City Council. It's important to note, though, that Austin actually did see problems with the direction that Mayor Steve Adler, Cotton Cabo, and the rest of the city council were taking the city in. And in District 6, they actually did something about it. They tossed out a Democrat and they put in a Republican. This is good news, and we shouldn't lose sight of this. It is possible for Republicans to win even in some of these deeply blue cities that forget governance, that just stop paying any attention to the basics, public safety, getting garbage off the streets, that sort of thing. Austin is one of those cities that's lost sight of that. And there's now hope that others could win seats on the council and maybe bring it back from the brink of destruction. Congressman Will Hurd, Republican, served a couple of terms in Texas Congressional District 23. He announced that he was not going to run again, and Tony Gonzalez stepped up to the plate to run on the Republican side. He ended up getting through the primary, winning the primary, and going to the general election against Gina Ortiz-Jones. And in a very swing district, I mean, this is the very definition of a swing district, Tony actually ran as a conservative, pro-border security Republican, and he won fairly easily Texas 23. Everyone has always said Texas 23 is likely to go blue one year, red the next. Well, Tony Gonzalez's campaign has actually made it now 3 campaigns in a row that Republicans won that district, and he won that district more strongly than Will Hurd ever won that district. Tony is a veteran. He's headed to Congress, and I think he's going to do great things. I think you're going to see really good things coming from Tony Gonzalez representing West Texas in Congress as a conservative Republican and a Hispanic who can reach out to a rising demographic in the state of Texas. The Democrats have talked long and hard about turning Texas blue. I think Tony is evidence that the Democrats' lurch to the left may keep Texas red a lot longer than they anticipated. So there's a little piece of good news.
So for me, life has always been difficult, and this race was no different. Now we took the fight to the areas that traditional Republicans hadn't gone to. Our push cards were in English and Spanish from the very beginning.
And here's one last piece of good news. Thanks to the November elections, the states are redder than they are blue. In fact, Republicans currently control 27 of the states and have more trifectas. That's sweeping government control of the states than the Democrats do by a pretty good distance. So that means, because this is a census year, there's going to be redistricting of congressional districts, and Republicans will control more of those than Democrats will. That puts us in a pretty good position to retake the House in 2022. I'm also confident the Democrats are going to overreach this year and next, and that puts us in a better position to retake the Senate. We've also learned from what happened this year, well, at least in November, and I think the Republicans will come up with countermeasures to get rid of some of the election irregularities that we saw, particularly in states like Georgia, where Republicans do still control most of the statewide offices. So there is good news out there. The Republicans are poised for a comeback. We're in for a couple of rough years. I'm not going to lie. We're in for a couple of rough years, but it's not the end of the world. So if you get your head down and you're thinking that this week is the end of everything for us and that we're just looking at socialism and communism to the horizon, that's a legitimate fear. However, this is America, and we do still have the means and the opportunity to have our say and to fight back. So keep your head up. Come on now. My name is Bryan Preston.